If you think James Joyce is chaotic and Marcel Proust is orderly, you're not wrong by accident. You're wrong by inheritance. For over a century, criticism has handed us a neat division of labor. Proust builds a cathedral of memory. Joyce unleashes the raw sprawl of consciousness. It's a story so tidy that we rarely question it. But once you look closely at how these books are actually made, not how they feel from a distance, the story collapses. Because Joyce's apparent disorder is among the most rigorously engineered structures in modern literature, while Proust's apparent order emerges only after years of wrestling with material that refuses to stay still. Both writers face the same problem: how to represent a mind that does not move in straight lines. Not the rational, self-transparent mind of the 19th century, but a mind shaped by involuntary memory, distraction, and association. What distinguishes them is not whether they impose order, but when and how they do it. Joyce. Architecture disguised as chaos. Ulysses is often described as an explosion of consciousness, voices colliding, styles mutating, narrative dissolving into noise. On a first encounter, that reaction makes sense. The novel overwhelms the reader with sensory detail, abrupt shifts of attention, and stylistic excess. But this disorder is not spontaneous. Joyce revised Ulysses obsessively over several years, and the book is governed by a dense network of formal constraints. Each episode follows a distinct stylistic principle. Motifs recur across chapters. Scenes mirror and refract one another. Even the most notorious moments of excess operate within strict limits. Take the Penelope episode, Molly Bloom's monologue, often treated as pure mental overflow. It famously lacks conventional punctuation, but it is not shapeless. The episode is carefully paced, divided into rhythmic units, and organized around recurring memories and sensations. The absence of punctuation is not an abandonment of form, but a substitution. Joyce removes visible structure while tightening control elsewhere. This is consistent with Joyce's broader method. He did not hide his interest in architecture. He supplied outlines and schemata to friends and collaborators, revealing that beneath the surface flux lay an elaborate design. Later critics expanded these hints into maps of the novel's symbolic and structural correspondences, but the impulse originates with Joyce himself. In other words, Ulysses does not record consciousness as it happens. It constructs an illusion of immediacy through extreme formal discipline. The chaos is the effect. The order is the cause. Proust. Order as a retrospective achievement. From a distance, In Search of Lost Time appears even more architectonic than Ulysses. Themes recur across thousands of pages. Characters reappear transformed. The final volume retrospectively explains the logic of the entire project. It is often treated as the supreme example of organic unity in modern literature. But that unity was not the result of a stable plan executed from the beginning. Proust's manuscripts tell a different story. The novel grew through continuous expansion, revision, and rearrangement. Episodes were inserted years after their initial conception. Early volumes were retrofitted to accommodate insights that emerged late in the process. This matters because it changes how we understand the consciousness the novel represents. Proust's long, winding sentences, often taken as evidence of serene control, are the product of painstaking drafting, cutting, and reassembly. Yet what they convey is not mastery, but vulnerability. The narrator does not summon memory at will. He is seized by it. Involuntary memory arrives unannounced, destabilizing the present before it can be understood. The famous Madeleine scene does not demonstrate control over memory. It dramatizes its failure. Meaning appears only afterward, through reflection and interpretation. Order, in Proust, is not the precondition of experience. It is what remains after experience has overwhelmed the self. Even the novel's concluding revelation, the recognition that art can redeem time, does not negate this. It confirms it. The structure Proust finally articulates is something discovered late, through endurance, not imposed from the outset. At this point, a reasonable objection arises. If Proust ends with such an explicit architectural vision, doesn't that prove he is the true architect? Only if we confuse outcome with method. Proust achieves order, but only retrospectively. Joyce begins with order and disguises it as flux. One builds the scaffolding first and lets the surface appear unstable. The other enters instability and assembles meaning afterward, once the turbulence has passed. This difference is philosophical, not just technical. Two models of the modern mind. Joyce treats consciousness as something that can be shaped through constraint. Meaning emerges through pattern, repetition, and formal control, even when that control is hidden. Proust treats consciousness as something that must be suffered before it can be understood. Meaning emerges only after the fact, through memory and interpretation. Their single meeting in Paris in 1922 is often remembered as socially awkward and artistically inconclusive. But in retrospect, it marks a deeper divergence. Two writers confronting the same problem, how to represent the modern mind, arrived at opposite solutions. Joyce builds order and lets it feel chaotic. Proust writes chaos and lets it resolve into order. If this reverses the story we usually tell about Joyce and Proust, that reversal is the point. We've mistaken surface effects for underlying method, confusion for freedom, and coherence for control. Reading them this way doesn't simplify their work. It restores its difficulty. It forces us to confront what these novels actually do, rather than what we've been trained to say about them.